This is a drawing by Ross Ulbricht, who is an inmate at the United States Penitentiary in Tucson, Arizona, a maximum security federal prison.
I'll spend the next few decades in this cage. Then, sometime later this century, I'll grow old and die. I'll finally leave prison, but I'll be in a body bag.
Ross was arrested at 29. Now he's 40. He faces a double life sentence plus 40 years with no possibility of parole for creating the Silk Road, a dark web marketplace that facilitated $1.2 billion in Bitcoin-denominated transactions. But a second chance might be coming from an unlikely savior.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht.
Trump made a deal with the Libertarian Party, and now Ross might not have to spend his middle and old age behind bars. He might not have to leave in a body bag if Trump makes good on his promise. Will he? In the coming months, career FBI officers and DOJ attorneys may dredge up lies about Ross so that Trump will change his mind. They may appeal to some of his draconian instincts. They may try to pin on Ross some of the disastrous outcomes of the drug war. But once you hear the full story, you'll see why Trump should ignore the saboteurs and keep his promise to free Ross. Ross's arrest on October 1st, 2013 at the Glen Park branch of the San Francisco Public Library was like a scene from an action movie. He was downloading an interview with Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad. In another window, he was administering the Silk Road. Undercover FBI agents staged a physical fight behind him. When he turned his head to observe the commotion, an undercover agent snatched his laptop before he could close the cover, which would have encrypted the contents of its hard drive. The FBI keeps a picture of the computer on display as a trophy from the hunt. Ross was no Walter White, the frustrated high school chemistry teacher who transforms into a violent drug kingpin in Vince Gilligan's series, driven by his lust for power and retribution. Ross was an Eagle Scout who majored in material science and engineering at the University of Texas at Dallas on a full scholarship. He was passionate about libertarian philosophy and Austrian economics. He read Ludwig von Mises and Murray Rothbard. He wrote on LinkedIn that he wanted to use economic theory as a means to abolish the use of coercion and aggression amongst mankind and create an economic simulation to give people a first-hand experience of what it would be like to live in a world without the systemic use of force.
I was trying to do something good. I was trying to help us move toward
This call is from a federal prison.
And he did. Ross created an underground e-commerce website called The Silk Road, and he was its first vendor, selling homegrown psilocybin mushrooms. The Silk Road became the eBay of drugs, with trusted sellers earning higher ratings and the message boards filled with tips for safer drug use. It established an ethical code of conduct: no fake degrees, no child porn, no stolen goods. Our basic rules are to treat others as you would wish to be treated and don't do anything to hurt or scam someone else.
I was trying to help us move toward a freer and more equitable world.
While the Obama administration's Justice Department was pressuring banks and credit card companies to stop servicing gun shops, adult websites, and payday lenders, even though what they were doing was completely legal, the Silk Road demonstrated that with Bitcoin, you could buy things on the internet by circumventing the payment rails that the government controlled. Online trade had become virtually unstoppable.
Back then, Bitcoin made me feel like anything was possible. When the idea of Bitcoin really clicked for me, I got so excited. I thought, with Bitcoin, I can try to do something that actually makes a difference.
Ross became a hero to libertarians.
He has 2 life sentences and never committed a violent crime.
The guy has been condemned to rot in prison for setting up a website.
They created a smoke screen and used the charges of murder for hire, which they didn't even end up charging in the end.
Now would be the perfect time to revisit Ross's injustices and set the man free.
But others say he got exactly what he deserved.
This is a judge who finally got it right.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. We all agree here on that?
Concur.
Life in prison without parole?
Yep.
Anybody else, any other wise guys want to do it? That's what you're going to get.
We all know the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And now here I am. I'm in hell.
Does he deserve this fate? As Ross became paranoid that he'd be caught, Did he stray from his high-minded ideals and break bad like Walter White? And does that mean Trump should think twice before freeing him? Ross's friends were shocked at his arrest. They described him as sweet-natured, loyal, guileless, and non-aggressive. He comes across as poetic and sensitive in his artwork and an online interview posted before his arrest.
It was definitely a first love experience for me because I learned a whole lot about love and myself and like how attached and vulnerable you can get.
Those who oppose freeing Ross say that he was also a contract killer.
He actually solicited the killings of as many as 6 people,
offering $150,000 to a would-be hitman.
His mother said non-violent guy. No.
But when you look closer, things get murky. Here's what we know. When building their case, prosecutors drew on chat logs from a moment of crisis at the Silk Road. The site's top administrator, Curtis Green, had just been arrested. It looked like he might have stolen about $350,000 worth of Bitcoin. Nob, a participant on the Silk Road, was chatting with the site's top administrator, who called himself the Dread Pirate Roberts. He told Nob that this will be the first time I've had to call on my muscle.
Do you want him beat up, shot, just paid a visit?
I'd like him beat up, then forced to send the Bitcoins he stole back.
Later that day, the Dread Pirate Roberts messaged Nob again.
Okay, so can you change the order to execute rather than torture? He was on the inside for a while, and now that he's been arrested, I'm afraid he'll give up info.
Nob sent the Dread Pirate Roberts a picture of what looked like Curtis Green being tortured and killed.
I am pissed I had to kill him, but what's done is done.
It turns out that Nob was DEA agent Carl Force, one of 2 investigators on the case, who went to prison for embezzling Bitcoin during the investigation. He had staged Green's murder. But maybe the Dread Pirate Roberts, who was chatting with the corrupt undercover agent who set up a fake hit, wasn't actually Ross Ulbricht. After all, the name was inspired by the film The Princess Bride to describe a character inhabited over and over through many generations.
I am not the Dread Pirate Roberts, he said. My name is Ryan. I inherited the ship from the previous Dread Pirate Roberts.
When the Dread Pirate Roberts gave an interview to Forbes 2 months before Ulbricht's arrest, he insisted that he was not the site's founder.
What inspired you to start the Silk Road?
I didn't start the Silk Road. My predecessor did.
The Silk Road forums are full of comments from the Dread Pirate Roberts account. Did you write those?
The most I am willing to reveal is that I am not the first administrator of Silk Road.
The jury never saw this interview.
Everybody say was there multiple DPRs? Absolutely there was. I was DPR once.
Curtis Green says to this day that he doesn't believe Ross is the one who put out the hit and claims the undercover agent Carl Force, aka Nob, also had access to the Dread Pirate Roberts account.
And Carl Force and myself, as far as I know, were the only ones that have the login.
When I was supportive of Ross to my attorneys, they said, why were you supportive of a guy that tried to kill you? And I immediately snapped back and I said, how do you know that he tried to have me killed? You're just going by what the government tells you.
Federal prosecutors never charged Ross for attempted murder, but the federal judge who sentenced him to 2 life sentences plus 40 years with no possibility of parole nonetheless referenced these episodes in her decision.
The fantasy is that this sentence is anything more than just purely punitive and completely beyond the range of what drug offenders get in this district, in this circuit, in this country.
The judge also said that Ross should be a public example for acting as though he was better than the laws of this country. Well, maybe he is. The drug war is the real villain in this story. It's cost $1 trillion while fueling decades of black market crime and violence, all as overdose deaths have increased. Black markets often become violent because there are no legal mechanisms for contract enforcement, and our participants become desperate to avoid being caught, which is what happened to the Silk Road. Yes, it's ironic that Trump, the man who openly admires China and Singapore's death penalty for drug dealers, might be the one to free the founder of the world's first major dark web drug market.
As I have said before, I will ask Congress to pass legislation ensuring that drug smugglers and human traffickers receive the death penalty.
But that's because if there's one thing Trump loves, it's a deal.
If you can't make a good deal with a politician, then there's something wrong with you.
And I'm a very good deal maker, believe me. I guess I look at everything like a deal.
I do hundreds of deals. The deals come out of my ears.
And one of his most audacious deals of the 2024 campaign was with the Libertarian Party, which never wins, but sometimes covers the spread in close presidential elections. Trump showed up at their convention and proclaimed he was something of a libertarian himself, to which he was met with a chorus of boos.
Well, in the last year, I've been indicted by the government on 91 different things, so if I wasn't a libertarian before, I sure as hell am a libertarian now.
But behind the scenes, something else was going on. Trump had struck an agreement with the Libertarian Party leadership.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht.
Don't spoil this election for me, and I'll free your boy Ross.
He's already served 11 years. We're going to get him home.
Ross Ulbricht is one of our own. He is a libertarian. And he was inspired to do this website because of his libertarian beliefs.
Libertarian National Committee Chair Angela McArdle says Trump's former Director of National Intelligence, Richard Grenell, set up a meeting between her and the president at Mar-a-Lago during the 2024 campaign.
Rick is like, well, President Trump is a deal maker. You ask for the world. You ask for whatever you think, you can get, and it'll probably land in the middle. He likes making deals. And so I really still, I was anxious to ask too much and have Ross fall by the wayside. So I really hit home, like, we just want you to free Ross Ulbricht. Like, that's the most important thing. And he said, I love freeing people. I'll do that.
After the party's nominating convention, McArdle vowed to only back its own candidate, Chase Oliver, in non-competitive states favoring the Democrats. Trump won by thin margins in several swing states, while the Libertarian Party finished with its lowest vote share in 16 years.
It was sort of this glorious miracle, the way things unfolded. It couldn't have been better for making sure that Donald Trump was incentivized and to stick to his promises.
So now it's time for Trump to keep his end of the bargain. The Silk Road began as Ross's idealistic attempt to make the black market just a little safer by creating a place where people could vet buyers, avoid risky in-person transactions, find untainted drugs, and share safety information. That it appears ultimately to have fallen prey to some of the same violent forces as has every other black market in history only shows just how hard it is to fix the problems prohibition causes, whether it's violence or increasingly dangerous synthetic drugs like the fentanyl driving the overdose epidemic, which has only grown worse since Silk Road's shutdown. Unless and until the government wises up and takes a different approach to drugs, our choices are places like the Silk Road and its many imitators since, or the cartels.
When I am president, it will be the policy of the United States to take down the cartels, just as we took down ISIS and the ISIS Caliphate.
We tried decapitating the cartels in the early 2010s, and it led to an even bloodier situation in Mexico. The last war on the cartels led to the rise of the notorious El Chapo. Once he was arrested, others took his place. The cartel transformed into a more decentralized and resilient umbrella structure, and the fentanyl flow increased, with seizures nearly doubling between 2021 and 2023. As long as there's a strong demand for drugs in America, it seems that there will be willing suppliers. Drug prohibition has failed, and no amount of bluster about executing dealers or going to war in Mexico is going to change that. But even if you disagree and think Trump can somehow finally win the drug war, it still doesn't justify keeping Ross locked up through his 40s. He'd already be out if he'd accepted the 10-year plea deal the government offered him. He served his time and expressed remorse.
To the extent that my actions led to drug abuse and addiction, I'm sorry.
Ross has been a model prisoner, pursuing his master's in psychology, teaching and serving as a conflict mediator on the inside, and collecting over 150 signatures of support for his release from fellow inmates. It certainly would be a far more defensible intervention than Joe Biden's self-serving pardoning of his son Hunter for all potential crimes covering more than a decade.
What are you going to do over the next 5 years? Like one sentence. I'm gonna do a few things. So one sentence isn't enough, damn it. But pretty sure I want to start a family in the next 5 years.
Nice. Okay.
Just make more friends and close people I love. Yeah, I want to focus on being more connected to people.
He's suffered enough. Donald Trump made a deal, and many of Ross Ulbricht's supporters voted for him, or at least not against him, because of that deal. It might not be pretty, but it's politics in 21st century America. Trump got what he wanted. Now it's time to set Ross free.